where ISR coming to Malaysia. So being a person who start from zero, I have to start by asking people, and then consulting the CROs, the researchers from other institutions about the ISR. What is all ISR is all about? So how am I going to do it correctly or right? So make sure that I'm not subjected myself for the auditing or inspections by the FDA. Alhamdulillah, so far, we have never been inspected by FDA, and we only received a few auditing by the external parties. So far, Alhamdulillah, everything is okay. Right. Sorry, internet is slow over here. Right, so I'm Dr. Nidna Fatmi Ahmad. On top of being the head of departments for education and research, I'm also the head for clinical research center at the SASMED and also associate professors from the Kuliah of Medicines. Until today, I've been conducting nearly 20 clinical trials, industry-sponsored research, and have been involved with lots of the pharmaceutical company and also clinical research organization. So this is a bit of myself before I start taking you to the ISR. Okay, another quotes I like. Okay, Albert Einstein always said this long time ago. Imagination is the highest form of research. So I think everybody, you and me, okay, have never ever, okay, have zero imagination. We always have imagination. Whenever we like to buy something, we imagine it. Okay, where are we going to go? What are we going to do? How much is the price? Okay, so this is part of the research. Or if you like to do something, if you're going to do, to further study, which course is the best for me? Okay, what should I do? So it's everything is about the researching actually. So don't say that nobody knows about the research, because for me, everybody knows about the research. Only they don't aware that what they are doing every day is part of the research. Right. Now, when we talk about research, I've been asked again, what is IIR, what is ISR, what ISR? Okay. So even when I start, we start to train my staff, they were confused among themselves. What is IIR? What is IIR? What is ISR? And what is ISR? So because if once you use the short form, it tend to be confusing. But actually, they have different understanding or they have different meaning. When we talk about the IIR, actually, which is investigator initiated research, as the word investigator initiated, meaning that the research is purely belonging to the investigator. Okay, they are the person who designed the research, they conduct the research, and because the word is that no IIR, it means that there is no external funding. If they need to use money, it means that they use their own money. When we talk about ISR, meaning that the research was designed by the investigator and conducted by the investigator, but somehow, okay, there were a sponsorship, okay, for the non-industry sources, such as a grant. Okay, for example, you receive the grant from OSTI, you receive the grant from the MOHI. So this is what we consider investigator initiated sponsored research, because the research started from you, but you got some sponsorship, okay, from the non-industry sources. But when we talk about the ISR, industry sponsored research, okay, it means that the research is paid for by an industry organizations, okay, usually the pharmaceutical company, and this pharmaceutical company has contracted a faculty member or a hospital member or has personnel, okay, to conduct a clinical trial. Okay, so it means that it started from a company and industry organizations. Okay, then they have contacted they will contacted you as the what they call the researchers to conduct a clinical trials, and these clinical trials usually involve an intervention with or observation of or registry or repository related to disease or biomedical condition. Having said that, because they are the one who designed what they call the study, they own the protocol. It means that they own the what they call the studies from the beginning, and they only contracted the faculty member or the health personnel to conduct the trials. Okay, so when we talk about clinical trials or clinical research, okay, it means that the research must involve a okay, and when we talk about clinical, okay, it means that the study was primary purpose to assess the safety and efficacy of, okay, of the drugs, device, diagnostic treatments, preventive measure, or similar intervention in humans, okay, by testing the interventions on patient in clinical setting. Okay, so this is what we call clinical research. Now, the clinical research have many phases. So before the drugs, before the devices being used or being marketed, they need to undergo the preclinical phases. Clinical cases meaning that what you call the particular drugs will be tested in the labs using animal. Okay, once they have been tested and approved to be safe in animal, sorry, they be tested in the humans. Okay, so the clinical when we test in the human, we call it as clinical trial. For the clinical trial itself, there are four main phases: the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. When we talk about the phase 1, meaning that we are testing the what they call the drugs or the devices onto the uh, healthy volunteers. Okay, usually around 40 to 80s atau 40 to 90 healthy volunteers. Okay, so at this point of time, when you start testing on the healthy volunteers, it means that the drug has been approved, okay, by the FDA to be tested in the human. Okay, and then once the drug has been tested in healthy volunteers, then we move to phase 2. Okay, at this point of time, usually we tested in 200 to 400 real patients. Okay, now we start testing in the real patients. And phase 3, when we start testing in more than thousands of patients, and once they have uh, pass the phase 3, the drug can be submitted for FDA for approval. Okay, because at this point of time, we have confirmed that the drug is safe and effective to be used in the humans for certain diseases. Okay, and phase 4 is actually post-marketing. Okay, when the drug is already being marketed. Okay, and it gets tested in larger populations. Okay, because it's tested, in every patients that have been given the drugs when it has been approved. Okay, in the real life. Okay, now, so the clinical trials from phase 1 to phase 3 is the phase 3 is the most expensive, time consuming, and difficult trials to design and run. Okay, we have remember this because they are spending a lot of money to ensure that, okay, when we start marketing the drug, the drug is really safe and effective to be used. Okay, so well, when we do a trial according to phases, what are we testing actually? When we start testing in phase 1 in the healthy volunteers, we are testing whether the drug is safe. Okay, what is the safety profile of the drugs when we first tested in the healthy volunteers, and what is the dosage range? Because when we tested in the animal, we got different dose. So when we start testing in the humans, after sometimes we got the right dose to be used in the humans. Okay, and when during the phase 1, the test is usually open label, meaning that the patient would knew that they were given the drugs, the doctors would knew that they are given this drug to the patient, so called to the patients, and usually a single center, only one center conducting the trial. On top of that, most of the study would do food effect studies, meaning that they would look, well, what is the response of the drugs in relation to the food. Okay, when the drug goes into phase 2, okay, we are testing for the safety and also side effect of the drugs. And also we are testing for the efficacy of the drugs and also dose response. Okay, for instance, what about if we give dose 5 milligram to this patient? What is the response rate? What about if we give 10 milligram to this patient? What is the response rate? Okay, and at this point of time, is usually double blinds, meaning that the patient will know that they were given a drug, and we as a doctor or researcher will know that this particular group patient were given drugs, meaning there should be more the drugs and also the placebo that be given to the different group of patients who fulfill the inclusion and exclusion criteria. And the phase 2 usually run in multiple center. As mentioned just now, some of the patient would be given placebo, and some of the patient would be given positive control. Meaning, for instance, if you're testing a new anti-diabetic drugs, okay, some of the patient will have the new anti-diabetic drugs, and the other group will have either placebo or they will have the the previous drug. Okay, right. Now in phase 2, actually we have two phase, 2A and 2B. 2A, we are looking for the dosing requirement. Usually we use the healthy volunteers still in the 2A, and when in 2B, we use the target population, meaning that the real patients. Okay, at this point of time, we are testing the drug efficacy and in a well-controlled target environments. Okay, what is the definition of well-controlled target population? Okay, just imagine that if you have a family members of, if you have patients who are sick and they go back to their home, okay, although we advise them, okay, please make sure that you adhere to our diabetic diets, you were supposed to exercise, you were supposed to monitor your blood glucose level. Okay, in real life they won't do it, or they might be do it, but but inconsistent. Okay, but when we do a clinical trial, this target population, we control the environments, meaning we make sure that we regularly remind them, okay, to comply to diets and exercise, and we provide them the what you call the capillary blood sugar for monitoring. We provide them with the diary for them to jot down to make sure that everything that they do is documented and monitored properly. So this is a patient that were given drugs in a well-controlled environments. Okay, so in phase 3, we are further testing the safety and efficacy of the drugs and looking at the primary endpoint. For instance, if you think, if the study were looking at the anti-diabetic drugs, and they were saying that, okay, the primary endpoint is that what do you call the cardiovascular event after 3 years is less than those who are not taking the drug. So this is the the what do you call example of the primary endpoints. Okay, and again, it will be double blind. Patient will know, then we will know that the patient was given the drugs or the placebo. And again, it's a multi-center. And for phase 3, they also will have a 3A and 3B. 3A is when the company is would like to apply for the new drugs to be marketed. And 3B, when the company would like to look for additional safety data to support their marketing claim. For instance, they were saying that, okay, besides reductions of mortality due to cardiovascular event, this also was wanted to have, to improve the BP. So they would do a 3B, looking for additional safety data to support their marketing claims. Okay, and finally the phase 4, okay, when the drugs already in market, okay, so we call it post marketing or post licensing. Okay, this is a long term study and involve larger populations, larger groups of people, because we already market the drugs into the population, and usually competitive, and it actually meant for safety surveillance. For instance, if you heard about Avandia a long time ago, it was, from the study it shows that good news, good what they call a promise, but during the post marketing, it was noted that it has some safety what they call impact. Right now, so if you look at the timelines that I've given just now, okay, for a study to be approved, the pre-clinical trial itself takes about 4.5 years. Okay, this is the medium range. It could take more than 5 years actually. And for phase 1 to phase 3, it takes about 8.5 years. For FDA approval, it takes about 1.5 years. Okay, so if we calculate, okay, if we total up everything, actually it takes more than 15 years for the drugs to be approved. Okay, and phase 4 is always be ongoing for the duration of the use of the drug. As long as the drug is market, the phase 4 can take place. Okay, so how is this whole process? Is, yeah, as mentioned just now, it's more than 15 years. So quite sometimes before we approve some drugs to be marketed. Right now, so what about study costs? Okay, so this is based on the what they call the information that I got. Okay, as mentioned, because the IP is belong or to the company or institutional. Okay, so the cost is backed by the pharmaceutical companies, and it usually costs about 100 to 800 US dollar million. Okay, million US dollar per each drug tested. So you can imagine how expensive it is. Okay, so why would anyone spend that much money on drugs developments? Okay, reason why, because without the clinical trials, we cannot prove the safety and effectiveness of the drugs, and the disease could not be treated properly because there was no proven safety and efficacy of the RP or drugs that can be used. Okay, right now, so okay, right. So when we talk about study result, okay, every 5,000 to 10,000 compounds that enter the clinical testing. Okay, the lab, okay, they tested about 5,000 to 10,000. So only one is approved for marketing. Yes, you can imagine, okay, how extensive the what do you call the preclinical phases need to be before the drug can enter the clinical phases. And when enter the clinical phases, they also have a chance to fail. Okay, so the cost of the failures has to be borne by the price of the one success. So that's the reason why, because we have spending a lot of money during the preclinical phases and also in some of the clinical trial phases. So we have to make sure that when we do the in the industrial sponsored research, when we do the clinical trials, okay, we do it properly so that it becomes so-called cost effective. Berbaloi jawabannya. Okay, right now. So the sponsor meaning that the pharmaceutical company or any institution organization who designed the protocol, has conducted the preclinical phases, and now having the clinical trials. Okay, and the sponsor will give a contract, okay, to PI in a site to conduct the research. Okay, so the PI might be contacted directly by the sponsor, okay, to conduct the clinical trials. Okay, sometimes there were also a middle person, or there were a middle party. Okay, nowadays we have the clinical research organization, we call it CRO. Okay, who is actually the organization or institution which is the representative of the sponsor. And in Malaysia we have another layer. Okay, beside the CRO we have CRM. Okay, so CRM, sometimes the site will be contacted by CRM because CRM is the sponsor or the CRO representative. Sometimes the site will be contacted by the CRO and sometimes by the sponsor. And as for Samsung itself, we have been contacted by three of them for different type of studies. So basically, it depends to your luck, to your what do you call nasib lah kan. Okay, siapa yang contact you. The issues is that when you have too many middle persons, sometimes there will be an issues in terms of negotiating. Okay, and for your information, most of the university hospital, they either directly contacted by the sponsor or directly contacted by CRO whenever there is a new trial coming in. Okay, so when there is a new trial coming in, there are few process before your site can start conduct the clinical trial. Okay, it includes the site qualifications, site selections, and site initiations. Okay, so alamak tak nampak. Now, this is the Malaysians experience in 2021. Okay, this is the what do you call the sponsor, which is mainly sponsored have a sponsored studies in Malaysia in 2021. Okay, the first one is Novartis, followed by Merck, Sharp and Dohme, and finally WHO. I have been working with Novartis, Merck, Sharp and Dohme. Okay, Novo Nordisk, Janssen, Silat, and Johnson. But I have never worked with the WHO. But why in 2021 WHO come in? Because of the outbreak of the COVID-19. So in that particular years, 2020, 2021, even 2022, we have a lot of studies which is related to the infectious disease. Okay. Now, this is the CROs, top CROs with the most sponsored studies in Malaysia, 2020. Okay, the first one is Novartis, followed by Parexel and IQVIA. I've been working with Parexel, IQVIA, PPD, and also my SMO, but I never worked with Novartis and also the TigerMed. There are other CROs which I've been working with. Okay, so basically, different CROs, different sponsors have different ways, in terms of the so-called negotiations. Okay, now when we talk about the clinical trials in Malaysia in 2021, majority of clinical trial which comes to Malaysia in 2021 is a phase 3 clinical trial. Okay, and number 2 is a phase 2 clinical trial. So this is two main clinical trial that comes in Malaysia in 2021. And the top, okay, the top one, the top what do you call sponsored research according to therapeutic areas in Malaysia, okay, in 2021 is main, as mentioned just now, infection and infectious disease. This is mainly due to the COVID-19 outbreak. Long time ago, the cardiac, the cardiovascular, and also the endocrines is top on the list. Nowadays, it downs on the list because of the current outbreak of the COVID-19. Okay, it's followed by the oncology and hematology. So basically it depends to the current trends or the current outbreak or whatever disease which is common at that point of time. Okay, now when we talk about site in Malaysia, has the highest numbers of sponsored studies. Okay, followed by PNET and KL. Okay, for another HPU or Hospital Pengajian University, okay, we have the you call apa nama ni? HUSM, UKM, and also this is the one which already been established. UPM has not started yet. UITM they have started their what they call sponsored research, and now assessment is coming in. Now, again, infectious disease mainly conducted in UMMC. Okay, again, another one, I think this one is oncology and hematology in Sarawak Hospital, Sedang Hospital mainly cardiology, and another one in UM is PITS and neonatology. So, how would the site, pick up the center? They would pick up the center according to the site qualifications that I'm going to talk about after this. Okay, right now, the study sites can be anywhere. Okay, in between these four, it can be the government hospital and clinic. When I was with Hospital Tengku Apuan Abzam, when I was in MOH, I've conducted lots of trial with the HTAA. Okay, they might also approach the peripheral clinics. Okay, the clinic kesihatan. For if there is any studies that can be conducted at the clinic level. Okay. Some private hospital also have involved. KPJ is one of them. I cannot remember the rest. Okay, and also private clinic. Hospital, as mentioned just now, UMMC, HUSM, and now ISASMED coming in. Okay, and private research center. Okay, if a second, there is a few which is well known in conducting clinical trials. Okay, now, sorry. When the sponsor have a clinical trial which they would like to be conducted, they would approach the site. Okay, or if they are not the person who directly approach the site, they will ask the CRO, they would or they would delegate to CRM to contact the site. Okay, and the site need to go through at least three new phases. Okay, I mentioned at least three new phases before the site can start conducting clinical trials. Okay, from the from the industry. Okay, so before we can start conducting any ISR at our site, we need to go through site qualification, site selection, and site initiation. During site qualifications, okay, the sponsor will send you a site qualification form to confirm the general qualifications of the site. Okay, under general qualification, usually the question will be, what is the PI qualification? So they will ask, okay, usually they will ask, who are you? Okay, if you are a physician, tell them they are a physician and provide them the proof. Okay, for instance, you have the NSR, you have the and they might ask you for the APC letter lah, tapi NSR or anything that can prove that you have the qualification. And on top of that, they will ask whether you are GCP qualified or not. Okay, GCP and APC is important. Sometimes NSR is an additional. Now, then they will ask you whether you got the studies, the current studies and competing studies. If they are conducting clinical trials on what you call diabetic patient who have kidney failure, and they will ask, do we have any current studies with the same target population? And if you say yes, it doesn't mean that they would they would reject you from involving with the ISR, but they would say, do you think that you can you can allocate your time, so and you don't have a bias when you recruiting a patient? Okay, they will ask you that kind of questions. So it depends on you how you answer. Usually I faced that before, then my answer to them is that yes, I have a clinical trial who is also recruiting the same target population, but fortunately my recruitment will be completed just before the study, the new trials come in. Okay, so basically you don't have any conflict of interest over there. Okay, then they will ask you regarding the patient population access. Do you have access to patient population? Okay, in SASMED, we have the APSAKIT, the electronic medical record. Yes, you can access the APSAKIT. Okay, and if you are working in a hospital without the what do you call the HIS, okay, you mean that there is no EMR in your hospital, you can mention to them that you have the database of patient that fulfill the criteria. Okay, and they will ask you whether you have a adequate research team. Adequate research team is referring to you as a PI. Okay, you must be somebody who is qualified and have experience to conduct clinical research, and you have a good team, which includes your co-investigator. Co-investigator must have the same interest with you, and then you should have a study coordinator, experienced study coordinators, and also the study nurse. This is the basic. Okay. On top of that, you might need pharmacy to involve in study. You might need lab technician to involve in study. You might need radiographer to involve in study. Okay, so it depends. So the basic researching is that PI, co-I, study coordinators, and study nurse. Okay. Now, then you ask you whether you have institutional review board, whether if you have, whether you are using local or central. For SASME, we are using our local. We have the Clear Research Committee, and also IMM Research Ethics Committee to go through the proposal, to go to protocol, to go through every detail for the ISR before the SR can be conducted in SASME. Okay. Then we ask about the service and facilities, meaning that they will ask you about do you have a designated clinic for the study? Do you have a space for blood sampling, a space to process the blood, okay, a space to store the sample, okay, a space to store the eyepiece, okay. What about the patient parking? What about the patient's waiting areas and whatnot? So they will ask you the service and facility that you can provide to ensure that when you start recruiting your patients, you don't have any issues with the patient recruitments, patient retentions, and patient monitoring. Okay, and finally, they will ask whether you have been having you had history of FDA inspections before. Okay, this is important. If the answer is yes, they will ask, okay, what is the finding? Okay, if there is no major finding, this is fine. But if you have major findings, then you might not be able, you might not be selected to conduct the clinical trials at your site. Number two, they are going to give you CDA or NDA. CDA means confidential disclosure agreements, or NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. It's meant to protect property information of the study. Okay, so this is legal documents. Okay, so you need to sign these documents and submit it to sponsor before the sponsor can share any details related to the trial. I have interested PI, but who refuse to sign CDA or NDA prior to the the feasibility questionnaire given, because they don't understand that CDA or NDA is something which is mandatory for them to sign before they can go through the protocol. Okay. Finally, the feasibility. Feasibility is questionnaire is given to look whether the trial is viable for your sites and whether it fits, okay, the PI research interest. For instance, if the studies is about infectious disease and you are somebody who has interest in cardiology, it means that you don't fit somewhere, okay, over there, okay, or you are interested, you are ID physicians and you're interested to do the the clinical trials related to the ID, but unfortunately your site does not have good numbers of team or good numbers of patients, inadequate service or facilities. Okay, so this is meant to look for the uh, eligibility of patient populations, facility and service which available at your site, qualified research teams members, times and abilities, and also finally whether there is sufficient budget. Why there is sufficient budget? For instance, okay, when we first started in 2008, we don't have that so-called freezer -40, -80. We don't have that centrifuge which is that they require. We don't have ECG machine that can transmit the ECG to the to the sponsors. So basically and we don't even have at that point of time our own computer to enter the data. Okay, so for the site which is not well equipped, the sponsors need to allocate some budget to buy the equipment. So they would calculate whether they do have enough budget to provide to the site. Okay, because this is not something which is supposed to be given or loan to the site. Okay, so they will calculate based on this one. So the feasibility would assess whether the trial is viable for your site and whether you as a PI would fit will fit your research interest. Okay, now second thing after site qualification is site selection. Okay, some of us call it site selection visit, some of us call it a site qualification visit, SSV or SQV. Now, myself also is always confused. SSV or SQV, this is the same thing actually, because both actually is conducted to to analyze whether the site is suitable to conduct the research or not, whether your site can be selected or not, whether your site qualified to conduct the research or not. Okay. Now, so basically, it's to confirm PI and site resource capability. Okay, so whether your site is is capable or not, qualified or not, is depending for the on the PIs and site resource capability. Okay, so during the SSV or SQV, okay, when the CRO coming in, or even or if the sponsor coming in, so they will talk about the team's responsibility and qualification. Teams meaning that the PI and also the co-I, SCs, staff nurse, and other departments which involved with the trial. So what is your responsibility? Okay, can they accommodate to that responsibility? So called this is additional to them. Okay, so, if they say yes, do they have the qualification? Do they have GCP? Do they have APC? Okay, or any specific training related to the trials. Okay, and they will talk about protocol fundamental. What is the protocol is all about? What is the objective of this trial? Okay, what is the eligibility criteria or inclusion exclusion criteria? Okay, what are the what do you call the protocol or procedure that the patient is going through, and what are the potential what do you call effect that we are monitoring? And there are also would confirm whether you have your institutional review board, because they would like to make sure that whenever you start conducting a research, there must be an internal monitoring also. Okay, so in SASME or in UIA, actually we have the KRC and IRAP monitoring our trials, and then they will talk about the informed consent form. Okay, what are the things that you were supposed to convey to your patients, whether you would like to have the informed consent forms in Malay only, or Malay, English, Indian, Chinese. Usually for my trials, always use that four language, because we have difference of patients who are able to read English and BM, but some of them won't are not able even to read English or BM. So at least for that four languages. And GDOC, okay, good documented practice. Okay, whenever you have any adverse event, any serious adverse event, how are you going to documents, how are you going to report, how are you going to monitor, and when you have a data, where are you going to put your data, where is your software document and whatnot. So you're going to talk about the good document practice, service and facilities available in our site. Okay, to confirm, because you have in the feasibility you mentioned that I have this and I have that. Okay, you mentioned that you have ECG, you have good internet, you have freezer, you have storage, but uh, during this SSB or SQV, they will come over here and they will have a tour to look for the research service and facilities available at our site. Okay, now, so basically, as mentioned just now, you are going to undergo at least 3 site qualification, site selection, and site initiation before you are able to conduct research. But sometimes, not sometimes, but okay, you have to remember that you have another step, which is the institutional oversight. Okay, and also clinical oversight. I'm highlighting institutional oversight because usually clinical oversight is not a problem for us. Okay, it's not an issue for us. The institutional oversight, if it is not taken care, you won't go through the site initiation, meaning that you won't be selected. Okay, now, so when we talk about institutional and clinical oversight, institutional oversight is a primary or key decision, okay, before your site can will be accepted or will be rejected as one of the potential site. Okay, what falls under primary or key decisions? Okay, it is financial conflict of interest. Number 2, budget and budget numbers. Number 3, contract CTA. Number 4 is RB and EC. And for the secondary or special decision that would determine whether your site will be accepted or rejected is the IP and commercialization developments, and investigational device exemption studies, and others such as radiations, recombinant DNA, and gene therapy, and stem cells. Okay, so for secondary, usually we don't have any issues actually. Right. So when we talk about institutional oversight, as mentioned just now, you have these 4: contract and CTA, budget and budget numbers, IRB and EC approval, and financial conflict of interest. When we talk about financial conflict of interest, okay, they will give you a form that you need to fill up, so that you need to disclose whether you have a financial conflict over the finding. Okay, the regular question is that whether you know the funders, whether you are somehow related, whether you have some interest. There are a few questions over there, okay, that you need to fill up. Okay, usually there will be no issues because none of us, related or have some interest with the funders. Okay, this is a must because if we compromise or appear to compromise the professional judgment of a researcher. Okay, if let's say because there was one of my co-I, because it was supposed to be filled up by the PI and co-I. One of the my co-I, instantly tick as yes, because he was rushing, and suddenly, the sponsor asked us whether that so-called answer is correct or not. So when we confront that lecturer, he said that yeah, it was his mistake actually. It was supposed to be no, 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 because it means that you don't have any financial conflict of interest. Okay. Now, when we talk about IRB and EC approval, as mentioned just now, we have our own ethics and also IRB. So depends to you. Okay, most of the hospital university or university hospital have their own IRB and EC. Okay, to look through to approve the trials. But for MOH facilities, they usually use the central, which is the MREC. Okay, when you send to the MREC, then you need to fill up the NMR and send it to MREC. It will go through the CRCs who will look through the viability of the research, and ethic who will look through the ethic components of the research. Okay. Now, when we talk about budget, okay, usually when the sponsors do a budgeting or do a budget estimations, they refer to the protocol, the feasibility and procedure fees. And then when we were given the budget for us to go through and then negotiate with the sponsors, this is what we usually do also. Okay, we will do what are the things that we need to do based on the protocol. For instance, okay, for the protocol require us to check the BP 3 times. Okay, within and for each BP check, it will be 1 minute. Okay, and then we were supposed to total it up and then take the means among these three. Okay, so it's so tedious. So it means that when we ask about the budget, the budget will definitely be higher than a study in which the study asks us to take only BP at least once. Okay, so when we do the budget negotiation, we look through. Okay, what is the requirement for the protocol? How many times should I take the BP? Okay, how many times should I take the blood? Okay, every hourly, every 4 hourly. So it will be depending on the protocol. Feasibility, as mentioned just now, we have mentioned that we have this and that. Okay, whether for instance, whether for if we mention dalam feasibility saying that okay, we do have our own lab that can analyze or process the blood samples. Unfortunately, we have special samples that cannot be processed at our site, so we need it to outsource it. So based on the feasibility, if we need to outsource it, then we need to include the budget that we need to pay to the outside company that we run the test. Okay, procedure fees against, especially just now, is that if your staff need to do the ECG and CG need to be transmitted or transferred to the sponsors, then again it's tedious, then it would change the what do you call the numbers again. Okay, so again, budget estimation is based on this at least this protocol, feasibility and procedure fees. Okay, now because of that tedious, and then when we forward to them, they will ask us to change, and when they forward to us, we don't agree, we ask them to change. These budget negotiations really take weeks or months. That's the reason why when I do the budget negotiations, all straight away submit the CTA to the legal so that they can go through, and the budget and also CTA will compete at the same time. Okay, and mind you, okay, the budget negotiations and also CTA need to be completed prior to subject enrollment. If the budget negotiations is not completed, CTA is not completed, you cannot enroll any patients. Okay, you cannot enroll any subject, and you might miss the book. For instance, if the research timeline mentioned that the special recruitment will end in February, everything that was supposed to be settled before the patient enrollment was supposed to settle at least 2 months before February, because you need your time to recruit your patients. Okay. Now, with regard to contract and CTA, it must be signed by the sponsor and sometimes together with CRO and PI. Okay, the main one is sponsor and the PI. Sometimes the CRO comes in. Okay, and the agreement is between the sponsors with PI, sponsors and CRO and PI. Okay, as mentioned just now, the negotiations of CTA and budget should run concurrently to make sure that we don't exceed the timelines that were given by these sponsors. Okay, right. So in terms of clinical oversight, we have IP and commercial developments, we have investigational device assumption studies, and others such as the one that I mentioned over here. So if you involve the radiation usage, you need to have a training or protocol with regard to radiation usage, radiation safety training, and biosafety committee looking through the protocol actually. Looking through the conduct of the study. And in terms of investigational device assumption studies, this falls under the category of FDA IDE actually. Okay. Now, in terms of IP and commercial developments, okay, bear in mind that the protocol, the clinical trial phases is from the inventor, the creator, which is the sponsors. Okay, but sometimes they might assign it they might give an assignment to somebody or some company. So these particular groups will have the exclusive legal rights to that IPs. Okay, and it's meant to protect the IPs or creations so that the inventors or the creators can fully utilize the invention creations within certain period of time. Okay, right now. So your side, has been gone through the site selections visit. Now the third one is the site initiations. In the site initiations, there are a few things that you are going to go through. The first one is we call it SIM, investigative meeting. Number 2 is SIV, site visit, and number 3, the confirmation of the service and facilities available at your site for to kick off. Okay, now this is the pre-study preparation. You have to have this before you start to kick off. Okay, when we talk about investigative meeting, okay, usually you have the IM when the study involve large multi-site trial, okay, and the IMs is usually conducted after the site qualification visit, meaning after the SQV, your site has been selected, okay, mean that you will be part of the study members, okay, so you are going to attend the IM, okay, and the IM usually is conducted before the site initiation visit or patient's recruitments. Okay, why? Because during the IM, you'll be the sponsors, the CROs, and the teams will discuss in detail about the protocol. So that when you start recruiting a patient, when you start the trials at your site, you know everything's in detail. Okay, then this IM usually only attended by the PI. But if the PI is unable to attend, then OCO-I or SC must attend the IM. Okay, but from my experience, I never gone alone. Usually, I bring together my main SC. Usually, I have more than SC, main one, and the secondary SC. The SC needs to know their parts, very well, so that when they start assist us in conducting clinical trial, there will be no mistakes, performed by them. So usually I'll go together with my SC, and sometimes if my SC is not available, then I bring my co-I. Okay, and then the traveling is connected and paid by the sponsors or CRO. Okay, the IM traveling, everything is handled by the sponsors and CRO. Okay, now with regard to site initiation visit, when the CRO or sponsor comes to our site, okay, they comes to us to prepare and set up the site for the research, okay, for the conduct of the research. Okay, so to make sure that we are able to conduct the research properly, they are going to conduct protocol training from A to Z. Whatever we have discussed during the IM, okay, and if we raise any question during the IM, they will come back to us during the SIV and discuss again with regard to protocol on all the questions or the issues or the queries that we have asked during the IM. Okay. During this SIV, the sponsors of CRO will make sure that PI fully understand all trial responsibility, because PI will be responsible for every single every single things conducted performed during the trial. Okay. That's the reason why PI was supposed to have the so-called what do you call the insurance for untuk PI ship. Okay. And then after all the regulatory requirement completion, meaning that we have submitted and we have been approved by KRCs and also the ethics committee. Okay. Uh, only then we can recruit the patients. Okay, if we don't have any approval from KRCs or ethics committee, we cannot recruit any patient as yet. Okay, then during SIV, the CRO or sponsors would request to meet a PI. PI is a must during the SIV, and also research member. Okay, when we talk about research member, they would like to see as many as possible the research member, because they would like to conduct protocol training at that point of time to make sure that everybody who involved with the trials knows in details about the trials. Okay. They may ask to meet with supporting departments representatives. As mentioned just now, you might have additional member team, which are the pharmacists, radiographer, lab technician, and whatnot. Okay, so the main one is PI and the main SC, and then the rest of research member as many as possible, and plus minus is supporting the department representative. Okay, and this is the thing that they are going to highlight or mention repeatedly during the SIV. PR responsibility, PR responsibility, PR responsibility. It means PR responsibility here, it means that from A to Z. Okay, so you have to have a good knowledge, adequate information, what you need to do to make sure that you don't you don't develop performance what they call deviations or violations of the protocol. Okay, when they would look through the research team's qualifications, okay, your APCs, your NSR, your GCP. Okay, it's a must for PI to have a GCP. For COI, nowadays also is a must. Okay, then they would discuss again with regard to the protocol, objective of the study, inclusion and exclusion criteria, recruitment, how you're going to recruit your patients, and also procedure that you're going to do for your patients. Okay, when they would look for the space and equipments which available, and whether it's fulfill their requirements. Okay, they would request for the lab manual. Okay, so you may need to give to them the copies of the normal range in your site, and if your lab has been certified, supplements together with it, what do you call certificates. Okay, then they would look through the process of specimen processing and shipping at your site. Okay, in CRC, we have our own small labs for processing the samples before we courier the samples to the specific central lab. Okay. And in terms of regulations and guidelines, they would like to look for the GCP, ICF, RBEC, IP, source requirement, and GDOC. So all regulations and guidelines related to the conduct of trials must be available at the site. Okay. And finally, data, case record forms, including EDC, what they call electronic data capture. Okay, whether you are able to perform electronic data capture, have you ever had experience doing ADC? So they will ask you questions and they will train you how to enter the data. Okay. Now, with regard to service and facilities confirmations, okay, they would like to look for the supporting departments. For instance, if your site require pharmacies, they will ask whether your pharmacist is available or not. Okay, and whether they do have the space to store your drugs or not. Okay, it depends. So in our case, we have our own CRC has our own space to store the IPs actually. Okay, and they will ask whether you have access to EMR or not, whether you yourself have access to EMR, and whether the what they call the study monitor can have access to EMR or not. Okay, so usually Saya ulang lah. Okay, when we talk about access to MR, you as investigator can access the EMR or not. Then whether the study monitor can access the EMR or not. Because when they come for monitoring, they would look at the MR because the MR, the electronic medical record, is the source document for your case record form. Okay, so they would compare whether what you have written in the case record form is the same things that you have written or documented in the EMR. And they will ask also whether your staff can access the MR, because sometimes if you are not available, they would like your staff to check some data, your staff can open it or not. Okay, so they would like to ask for the access to MR. And with regard to research instruments, every instruments or equipments that we have must have a calibrations of validation record. Okay, we need to show us that all the equipments are well maintained, well calibrated, and is a validated records. Okay. In terms of lab service, as mentioned just now, they request for copies of lab normal range and certifications, participants' compensation for time and effort. Okay. They would usually give a honorarium to patients to compensate the time for them to come to the hospital and the efforts, to join the research. And sometimes they will ask you whether there is a designated parking for patient involved in the research, whether you have a chartered bus or a chartered van for patient to come to the research. So anything that can help or assist patient when they come to the hospital, and if there is nothing that we can do, then they will compensate the patients for their time and effort. And finally, the procedures B, meaning the invoice. Okay, the invoice need to be billed to the sponsors and some subjects and or insurers. Subject here because when the patient comes in for the procedure, we will pay the patients. Okay, so in the invoice to the sponsors, then we put over there that this is patient's honorarium. Okay, but in some conditions, it's written that we might bill the patient or the subject in the case which is not related to the procedures. Okay, meaning that the patient comes to some for regular visit, suddenly just pop up in our clinic to ask something. So we cannot pay the patients when the patient comes out of this study visit, unless that the patient comes to complain that the patient have unexpected adverse event. Okay, tak gerak lah. Okay. Now, when we talk about setting up to kick off, okay, for SASMED, make sure that all the research need to be registered with RMC, Research Management Center, and also our department, Education and Research. And we need to do a pre-screening, so we need to have to access electronic medical record. Okay, I know what we practice actually. We suka-suka je access a medical record without having our ethics approval before we review the patient record. So it's an article actually. Okay, so you need to ask for the RB to waive the RCF before we so-called review the patient's medical record for the pre-screening purposes. Okay, and they will provide us with study binders in which that you need to fill up with the forms and supplies that provided by a sponsor CRO, and finally do a walkthrough. When I say a walkthrough, usually what I usually do with my team is that we do a so-called a planned from the onset of SIB until the completion of study. So what are we going to do for each visit before patient comes, during when the patient comes, and after the patient goes back, so that everything is is well arranged, so that when the patient comes there will be no issues, and patient will be comfortable to come repeatedly. And Alhamdulillah, so far all of our patients, we have 100% patient retention rate, 100% fulfillment of the recruitment target, and then all of them are happy to be with us. In fact, they said that if we have other trial, just tell them that they would like to involve again. Okay, now this is something for me to mention before we stop the stop. Okay, ISR is a journey. Okay, you can see that how difficult is the journey is. Okay, But okay, it's worth for you to take a chance to do ISR. How are you going to do it? You need to figure out your destination. If you look at these pictures, who are you at the moment? Okay, me as academicians, me also as clinician, me also as administrator. But I do find time to do research and become researcher. And I think that most of you, which is in front of me at the moment, are holding, are doing more than one job. You may be clinicians, on top of that you are academicians, and on top of that administrator. So it is okay for you to be researchers. It's good to be a researcher because this is another thing which you need to venture. That you need to experience. Okay. Now, so you have to map the route. Which type of researcher that you would like to be? The fundamental researcher or the clinical trial researcher? Okay. Now, if you opted to do clinical trial research, to be clinical trial researcher, then ISR is one of the best option for you to involve with. Okay. Now, when the one, go adventure and find the sources. Okay, when I mention sources over here, it means that you need to have your own pool of patient. You need to have your source of population. Okay, for instance, when I start with the as a what do you call PI for the industrial sponsored research back in 2008, I have my own database on diabetic patient in hospital Tengku Apuan Afzal. So I have my own, source of population in which that I will recruit according to the inclusion exclusion criteria. So I ask you to have your own database, your own source of populations, your own volunteers. Okay, so you might have your own database which I had before, your own one, or you might have a database in our electronic medical record. Okay, this is what I've been fighting for SASMED lah. The what do you call clinical research data center for us to have own electronic medical record which have a own database on patients pool. Okay. Now, number two source is the team. You have to have a team, and your team must have a good teamwork because only then you can make sure that your dreams is working. So, who are the study teams? Number one, okay, which is if you opted to be the PI, okay, I suggest that you try your luck to be PI because when you start to be PI, you have lots of responsibility, and you know that uh, holding all this responsibility, it is very you feel satisfied whenever the research has succeeded or completed successfully. Okay, so it must include the PI, it must include the study coordinators. Okay, you need to have one main SC, one what they call backup FC or secondary SC. One because your main FC might be sick one day, or she might be busy one day, so you need to have a backup so that whenever there is a what you call a procedure that need to be performed accordingly, there is a backup. And then you have to have a co-investigator. Okay, I always educate my co-investigator what are the things that need to do. You know what is the protocol is all about. What are the things that need to do. Okay, and the most important one is about documentations. Uh, in everything, especially in research, no, not documented meaning that not done. Okay, not documented properly meaning that was not done properly. Okay, so documentation is one of the important things over here. And steadiness, okay, you have to have a steadiness because you know, especially if your study involved in blood taking of your patients, giving medication to your patients, IV medication to your patients, you have to have steadiness. And finally, for the others, especially just now, you might need pharmacists, you might need lab technician, you might need an echo technician, you might need a scope technician, you might need a radiographer and others. Okay, so you need to have your study teams. Now, in terms of the study facilities, in SASMED, we do have a designated clinic to to see patients during the trial. Okay, and then the clinic must be well equipped with the a proper consultation table, examination scotch, recall blood samplings and other things that you can do so that the patient will need to be move around quite frequent. And number two, you need to have an area for you to process the sample before you ship to the central labs. And finally, an area for the for data entry and area for the what they call study monitoring by the study monitor. Okay, so now you are there. So please look around for the sponsors and also for the CROs. Okay, and please book a good relationship with the CRO, CRM, and main CRCs, so that if you have any doubts, any queries, these will be your reference persons. Okay. With that, finally learn from experience. Okay. And remember that when I said learn from experience, because when I start long time ago again, because I have no information, no experience with regard to ISR, I look around and ask people, especially the CRO or the study monitor. I always contact them. Okay, this is what happened. What I need to do, or if I plan something, is it okay to do this? So look around. Okay, if at any point in the journey, okay, you lost and you need to have a directions. Okay, so please look around and ask for help, and believe in yourself, because this is the first secret for you to be successful. With that, I thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you. A very interesting talk. And right now we open the floor for any Q&A. Okay. While waiting for the question, okay, doctor, can you please share with us your experience as a PI and any obstacles that you have faced, or maybe the future PI might face during conducting clinical trial? Doctor, I believe you are on mute mode. We
Sorry.
couldn't hear your voice.
Sorry. Okay. Now, when we talk about the obstacles that I have experienced before, when I was with HTA before, when I start conducting the clinical trial, the trials, the patients population that they asked us to recruit are the patients who were newly diagnosed diabetic, and some of them were on only one medication, or some of them were not on any medication. This is the few of the new trials, before lah. Okay, it's quite difficult because you are in the tertiary center. Our own populations are those patients who are having chronic diabetic, uncontrolled, require multiple medication. Okay, so because of that issues, then I start asking around, where can I get that source of population? So I make contact with friends, and then from there I realized that they have the outpatient departments somewhere in Kuantan. I can't remember, Tanah Putih or somewhere. Okay, so then I write to the sponsor saying that I would like to recruit patients from the OPD. Then I write to MOH asking them to allow me to go to OPD to see the patients, so that I can recruit the patient from the OPD. So whenever I do face obstacle, nobody did not, kan? So, but you have to have mechanisms, and you have to be a fast thinker. You have to be analytical, so that whenever you face a problems, it will not be a problems, but it will be something which is um, beneficial you. By doing that, actually the subsequent studies is easier for me, because whenever I'm stuck with the numbers of patients, then you have your own contact, you have your own pool of patients somewhere outside. On top of that, if I don't have enough patient from outside, if I don't go there myself, then I'll write to the KKs to refer their patients to us. So this is how we try to resolve our issues in terms of the inadequate numbers of study populations. Okay, so that is one of the things. Number two, with regard to patient retention. Okay, as mentioned just now, we achieve 100% patient recruitment target rate. We achieve 100% retention, but it is not that we don't have any issues. We do, because the patient already signed the informed consent form. Then when they go back, families, is not satisfied, request the patient to what do you call, to so called stop the trial. Okay, we have to meet the families, educate them what is the trial is all about, tell them what is happening, and then we don't push them. We ask them to think, because it's always good for you to educate them rather than push them to continue in trials. So alhamdulillah, finally they agree. So this is the thing that you need to face. the negotiations, it must be good. Meaning you have to have a good commercial skill. For you to have a good commercial skill, you have to have knowledge in what you are doing. So that's the thing, and that is what we did. I think that's, I only remember the issues that we faced. What else was the question just now?
The obstacles and also the experience. Maybe you can share with us any sweet memories during
Haha.
uh, your experience as PI. Maybe
Yeah.
this one can motivate our future PI to be involved in clinical trial.
Okay. Oh, well, if you talk about sweet memories, there is no such thing as sweet memories. But then there is a good thing. Okay. The first thing is that one, when we try our best to fulfill what we were supposed to do, what the target is, and we succeeded, is the best thing. And because of that, our hard work in recruiting the patient always achieve the target. Number one, is that our score, so called, to give the same, to share with the other investigators of how my sites were doing, so to make sure that we achieve our target. So being a speakers among the, all these, what do you call, researchers, including the international researchers, is one of the things lah. So we were given a chance to share our experience, what we did to make sure that we achieve our target. Number two, once so called we have done things accordingly, appropriately, we achieve whatever the target is, our names is, in the list. And from what I know, most of the, what do you call, sponsors which already involved with me as a CROs, uh, they have good impressions about me. So whenever they have a research, they just, you're not about research ni, you just contact you and tell you that, yeah, they have a new research. So you have increase your social skill. Beside being, having friends among doctors, you have friends among, see, they call pharmaceutical companies and also CROs. So they know them, they know you, and then they were impressed with you. And whenever they have a new research which is related to you, then they will offer to you. And finally, in terms of achievement, have been given a few awards with regard to ISR, which is the most active researchers few times when I was in USTA before. So awards is one thing lah. But when I start doing this, okay, to be frank with you, I am the type of person who are doing something not for benefit of myself, but for benefit of other people. At that point of time when I was in HTA, I was doing endocrine actually, and then there were two people doing endocrine, if I'm not mistaken, or three actually. But being me who easily socialize with everybody, I was asked by the pengarah hospital at that point of time, for me to do the SR. Please do SR. We need what do you call, HTA to be known one of the good site, one of the potential site for SR. Although I know nanti about SR, cakap okay lah Datuk, buat lah. So my first time doing it is just because of, okay lah, I'm helping HTA to be known as one of the potential sites, so I do SR. But subsequently, that learning something new is interesting, and then you would like to do more and more, because you feel satisfied with what you're doing, and at the same time people are satisfied with you. It's balanced. Okay, you make people satisfied, and you yourself become satisfied with it. Right. I think that's it.
Okay, Doctor. We have several questions from Dr. Muhammad Asri. Okay, question number one. Is the ISR clinical trial actively recruiting sample in Malaysia? Okay, you want to answer one by one, or I read all the question first?
Answer one by one, lupa.
Okay.
Now, whether the SR, no, SR is everywhere in Malaysia. Okay, you can look at the database we have before. We have the trend 2012 and until 2018, I'm mistaken, but I did not show you that slide because it's an old slide. Okay, the trend is increasing. We have a lot of SR coming into Malaysia. But the what you call, the type ataupun the therapeutic areas is depending on what are the current medical condition. Okay, long time ago when I was with HTA before with TASMED, they have a lot of endocrine, diabetic, heart failure studies. Nowadays they do have the diabetic, but not very very, not lots lah, just a few. Then heart failure pun ada, but again a few compared to the because studies related to the ID. Yes, to answer the question, the answer is yes. ISR is actively being conducted in Malaysia, and most of the facilities under MH and HPUs is conducting the research, and they have also the private the private centers, the research centers is conducting research.
Okay, Doctor. Question number 2. Is there any possibility of SUSMED IUM become center for clinical trial for new drugs and treatments?
Now, if you talk about SUSMED, at the moment we are we are conducting the ISR, meaning that the research in which the protocol is owned by the industries, and we are only the so-called team or contract staff to perform the trial. But if you're talking about a new drug which invented by IUM, it's depending to our researchers or our academicians. If they do have initiative to have a protocol for a new drug, we might be conducted a research for our own drugs. Okay, so because the question was ambiguous, new drug, new treatments, okay, can be from us, can be from the sponsors. Okay, if you are talking about IISR, so it depends to you. If you have a visions, if you have intentions to invent a new drug, okay, under umbrella umbrella, then it's good things. So we can do it over here. And in fact, I've worked with ICOP before. I'm one of the medical advisor for the IBES. So they have invented the the generic drugs for the dimicrons actually, or glycoside. So if you have that the intentions, then you can create the new drugs, and then we can do the clinical trials over here. If not, at the moment, what we are doing actually, we are conducting a trial in which the protocol belong to the institutions.
Okay, for question number 3 and number 4, I'll read them together. Okay, for question number 3, do we have any ongoing clinical trial here? And the question number 4 will be, and we are SUSMED truly ready as academic hospital, teaching hospital to be research hospital. So what's your opinion?
Okay, number 3 answer is yes. We have both IISR and ISR conducted in SUSMED. For ISR, kita ada berapa I cannot remember. Last time berapa 7, 6? I cannot remember.
For ISR, counting 6 right now.
Okay, so 6 yang dah been approved. We have received how many feasibility?
For feasibility for last year, we got 20, if I'm not mistaken.
So if we have
for this year, counting.
Okay, so if we have received total 20 feasibility last year, and we hope that this year, the numbers will increase. It means that we are ready to be a center for clinical research actually. Okay, and in terms of the industry sponsored research, now at the moment we have 6 approved clinical trials or clinical research. Industry sponsored research. Okay, and we have few investigator initiated sponsored research which is also part of clinical trials. So we have the one using the SUSMED research grant also, who is actually a clinical trials. Okay, so if you ask whether we are ready, I would say it's ready. Okay, only then we have the right pool of patient, we have the adequate numbers of staff, we have adequate facilities and services. What we don't have actually, the motivated or interested PI to start with. Okay, so if you are interested, if you are motivated enough, okay, we would like to invite you to become the PI for the industrial sports research. Or if you are more than motivated, meaning that you would like to create your own drugs and conducted IISR, we also welcome you.
Okay, Doctor. Thank you very much for sharing your experience, sharing your knowledge with us. And I believe there's no more question here. So before we end our talk today, I would like to remind the participant to register attendance in iAttendance and for medical practitioner to fill in Google form. And we really appreciate our audience for today to fill in our feedback form for improvement in the future. Okay, if you have any questions or suggestions, topic related to ISR that you want to know more, you can always drop us a call or email at 09-591-2625 or email us at crc_susmed@iim.edu.my. Again, thank you very much, Doctor, for your knowledge sharing. With that, we end our talk today with Tasbih Kafarah and Suratul Ars.
Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum.
With that, thank you.